I travel a lot for work. Last year, I relocated from California to Texas for a new logistics job. Instead of shipping my car, I decided to drive across states myself. It felt like a clean break. New city, new life. By the time I reached Arizona, it was past midnight. I had been driving for nearly 10 hours. The highway was empty, the desert pitch black on both sides. I kept telling myself I could push through another hour, but my eyes were burning and I caught myself drifting slightly between lanes. That scared me enough to pull off at the next exit. There wasn't much there. A gas station, closed diner, and a roadside motel called Desert Star Inn. The building looked old but functioning. 2 stories. A faded sign buzzing faintly. The parking lot was almost empty. Inside the small lobby, the lighting was dim and yellow, old couch against the wall. Vending machine humming. It smelled like stale coffee and dust. The clerk came out from a back room after I rang the bell. Heavy-set man, maybe mid-40s. No smile. "Need a room?" he asked. "Just for the night," I replied. He handed me a key card. Room 214. I glanced at the elevator near the entrance. The panel only showed buttons labeled 1 and 3. "Second floor?" I asked. "Yeah," he said casually. "Use the stairs. Elevator skips 2. "Skips 2? Old building," he shrugged. "Just use the stairs." The answer felt strange, but I was too tired to question it. The stairwell door creaked loudly when I pushed it open. Concrete steps. Metal railing. The air smelled dry and dusty. When I stepped onto the second-floor hallway, I noticed something immediately. It didn't look maintained like the lobby. The carpet was faded. The lights dimmer. Some doors had small signs hanging from the handles that read, "Out of service." It felt like a floor that wasn't meant to be used. Room 214 was near the end. My keycard worked. Inside, the room looked normal at first glance. Bed made, TV on dresser. Curtains closed, but there was dust gathered lightly along the baseboards. The air felt stale, like the room hadn't been used recently. The bathroom fan was running when I entered. It rattled loudly. I turned it off. Silence. I set my suitcase down and turned on the TV for background noise. It powered on with a loud burst of static. The screen flickered between channels for a few seconds before settling on a random station. I assumed I had pressed something accidentally. I placed the remote down and went to brush my teeth. When I came back, the TV switched channels again on its own. Static. Then another channel. I stared at the remote. It hadn't moved. "Cheap electronics," I muttered. I turned the TV off and lay down. Around 2:15 a.m., I woke up suddenly. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured. Not walking past quickly. Stopping near doors. The steps paused outside mine. The door handle moved slightly. Just enough to make a soft clicking sound. My body went cold. I didn't move. After a few seconds, the footsteps continued down the hall. I got up quietly and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. The flickering light halfway down cast long shadows across the carpet. I picked up the room phone and called the front desk. No answer. I tried again. Finally, he picked up. "Yeah? I'm in 214. Someone just tried my door." "That's not possible," he said immediately. "I heard it. You're the only guest on that floor." That made my stomach tighten. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Second floor's mostly closed." Then who was walking outside? Silence. "Old pipes," he said finally. "Building settles. Pipes don't test door handles." I hung up. 10 minutes later, I heard something else. A door opening somewhere nearby. Then whispering. Low. Soft. Too quiet to understand. I rushed back to the peephole. Nothing. Empty hallway. Then I heard a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across carpet. It came from the direction of the rooms marked out of service. I opened my door slowly and stepped into the hallway. The air felt warmer, oppressive. At the end of the corridor, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A metal door labeled "Maintenance Only." There was a faint line of light under it. I froze. The whispering sound came again, very faint. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. That's when something clicked in my head. If the second floor was mostly closed, if several rooms weren't being rented, that meant someone could be using them, living in them, accessing the space behind walls. I walked back toward my room. When I tried my key card, it flashed red. Access denied. I stared at it. I tried again. Red. My wallet and keys were inside. I suddenly felt very exposed standing there in that hallway. I heard movement at the far end. A shadow passed across the flickering light. Slowly. Not running. Just moving. I swiped the card again. Red. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. Then, on the fourth try, it flashed green. The door unlocked. I went inside quickly and locked it. I didn't sleep after that. At 4:45 a.m., I packed my bag. When I stepped outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Downstairs, the clerk was behind the desk. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah," I replied. He didn't meet my eyes. I didn't mention the maintenance door. I didn't mention the footsteps. I just left. Later that day, I looked up the motel online. Most reviews were average, but buried in the comments were a few strange ones. "Don't stay on second floor. Heard hallway noises all night." And one that stuck with me. "Room 214 shouldn't even be listed." No explanation. No response from management. I don't know what was happening up there. Maybe someone was living in the unused rooms. Maybe there were access panels behind the walls. Maybe the second floor was never meant to be rented at all. All I know is this. The elevator didn't have a button for two. The clerk said I was the only guest upstairs, and someone tried my door at 2:15 a.m. Now, whenever I check into a hotel, I pay attention to the floors. If an elevator skips one, I don't stay. Some places hide things in the parts of the building people aren't meant to see. And sometimes, you only realize that after you've already spent the night there. I travel alone a lot for work, conferences, small meetings, training sessions. I've stayed in budget motels more times than I can count, and I've never considered myself paranoid. I double lock the door, keep the curtains closed, and that's usually enough. But what happened during a work trip to Florida last year changed the way I travel forever. I'm 29, and I work in medical sales. It was a short 2-day conference near Jacksonville. Nothing special. My company covered the hotel, but only up to a limit. The larger chain hotels near the venue were booked, and what was left was expensive. So I chose a roadside motel about 15 minutes away. The reviews were average. Not amazing, but not terrible either. Most people said it was basic but clean. I arrived around 9:40 p.m. It was already dark, and the air felt thick and humid the moment I stepped out of my car. The motel sign glowed blue and pink, one of the letters flickering slightly. There were only a handful of cars in the parking lot. I remember thinking it felt quiet, too quiet for Florida. The front office was brightly lit compared to the darkness outside. The clerk was already standing behind the counter when I walked in, like he had been watching the door. "Good evening," he said with a wide smile. There was something about his eye contact that felt off. Not aggressive, just too focused. "I have a reservation," I said, giving him my name. He typed slowly on the computer, glancing up at me every few seconds. Traveling alone? He asked casually. Yes. Work conference. Room 112. First floor, toward the back. Ice machine is down the walkway. If you need anything, I'm here all night. The way he said that last part made me slightly uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to be dramatic. The walkway to my room was dimly lit. The lights along the wall flickered faintly. The concrete felt warm even at night. Somewhere nearby, I could hear an ice machine humming and the distant sound of cars passing on the highway. Room 112 looked normal. Beige walls, queen bed, mounted TV, small desk. It smelled strongly of cleaning chemicals mixed with old carpet. I locked the door immediately. Deadbolt, chain latch. I set my suitcase down and turned on the AC because the room felt stuffy. It kicked on with a loud clunk and started humming. After a few minutes, I heard a faint clicking sound. Click, pause, click. At first, I assumed it was the AC adjusting. I changed into comfortable clothes and sat on the bed scrolling through my phone. The clicking continued. It didn't sound like normal air conditioning. It sounded sharper. Metallic. Click, click, pause. I muted my phone and listened carefully. The sound was coming from above. I looked toward the ceiling vent near the corner of the room. That's when I noticed it. A tiny red light blinking near the vent. It was small, almost unnoticeable. If I hadn't been staring at the ceiling, I might have missed it completely. It's probably a sensor, I told myself. Maybe part of the smoke detector system. Still, I stood up and walked closer. The red light blinked once. Then again, each blink matched the faint clicking sound. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I aimed it toward the vent. At first, I saw only metal slats and darkness. Then I adjusted the angle slightly. Deep inside the vent, I saw something reflective, a small circular glint. It looked like glass. I stepped back immediately. No, I whispered to myself. You're overthinking. I forced myself to step closer again. I recorded a short video with my phone, zooming in as much as I could. The red light blinked again. Click. A wave of fear washed over me. I suddenly felt exposed, like every movement I made in that room had been watched. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom and stood on the bed, pushing it into the vent opening as best as I could. I wedged it tightly. The red light disappeared. The clicking stopped. That silence felt worse than the sound. I climbed down slowly, heart pounding. Maybe it really was just a sensor, and I had blocked it. Maybe I was embarrassing myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to go to the front desk. The clerk's smile was gone when I walked in. Everything okay? He asked. I think there's something in the vent in my room, I said carefully. There was a red blinking light and clicking. He frowned slightly. That's impossible. I saw it. We don't have cameras in rooms, he said quickly. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying there's something in the vent. He avoided eye contact this time. It's probably part of the fire system, he said. Nothing to worry about. Can someone check it? I asked. It's late, he replied. Maintenance isn't here. His tone had changed. Less friendly, more dismissive. I felt small standing there alone. Okay, I said quietly, even though I didn't feel okay at all. Back in my room, I checked my suitcase. The zipper looked slightly off-center. I paused. Had I left it like that? I couldn't remember. The bathroom door was slightly open. I was almost sure I had closed it. I tried calling my sister just to hear a familiar voice. My phone showed 1 bar of signal. Then suddenly, no service. I moved toward the window. Still nothing. After about 2 minutes, the signal returned. I told myself it was just bad reception. But I couldn't relax. Around midnight, I called the non-emergency police line.
Mm.
I felt ridiculous doing it, but I needed someone to take me seriously. 2 officers arrived about 20 minutes later. They followed me into the room. I showed them the vent. The towel was still stuffed inside. One officer carefully removed it and shined his flashlight into the vent. "There's nothing here," he said. The vent looked clean, completely empty. My stomach dropped. "There was something there," I insisted. "I saw it blinking." The officer gave me a sympathetic look. "Sometimes reflections can look like lenses, and AC units make clicking sounds." I felt embarrassed, like I had imagined everything. They spoke briefly with the clerk before leaving. After they were gone, the room felt even more uncomfortable. At 2:30 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow, heavy. They stopped directly in front of my room. I held my breath. The shadow under the door shifted slightly. Someone was standing there, not knocking, just standing. I stared at the handle. It didn't move. But whoever it was stayed there long enough to make my chest hurt from holding my breath. Finally, the footsteps continued down the walkway. I didn't sleep after that. I stayed fully dressed, sitting upright on the bed, watching the door. Around 4:45 a.m., when the sky started turning pale blue, I packed my suitcase quickly. As I walked to my car, I glanced up at the vent area of my room from outside. Nothing looked unusual, but I couldn't ignore the possibility. The duct system likely connected multiple rooms. If someone had access from another space, if someone had duplicate key cards, if someone knew which guests were alone, that thought made my skin crawl. The clerk was standing inside the office when I drove past. He didn't wave. He just watched. Weeks later, I looked up the motel again online. Buried in the reviews were a few comments that stood out. Strange vent noises. Felt like someone was listening. No proof, no arrests, no confirmation. But I know what I saw, and I know how it felt. I never stay in roadside motels anymore, and the first thing I check in any room now is the vents.